With me today, Angus Geddes, Managing Director of Fat Profits, of course, and Geoffrey Garrett from the American Institute here in Sydney. Gentlemen, nice to have you with us, of course. Let's just ponder, if we can, the idea of winning two houses. Geoffrey, what would that mean for an ability to really stamp Obama's authority and bring about the change that Jim Rogers was saying you need, a widespread, fundamental cleansing of the system?
Well, let's assume for the moment, and I think it's a strong assumption but not guaranteed, that Barack Obama wins the presidency. I think then he would be guaranteed to have majorities in both houses of Congress, which would be critical. The big question that Democrats are looking at is whether he'd get to the magic number, 60 in the Senate, to give him a filibuster-proof majority there. But let's assume that there was unified and strong Democratic government. Would that be good or bad for the markets? I think there's an on the one hand, on the other hand. The on the one hand is that President Obama would be able to be decisive and lead his party. The on the other hand is that Democrats have been out of power and they feel that they've really lost under the Bush administration. So there's enormous pent-up demand on the Democratic side for a traditional left liberal agenda. And the real question is whether that's what the economy needs at the moment. The McCain side has been very critical of Obama, calling his tax cuts tax credits. This is money going into the pockets of people who currently don't pay income tax in the US. And the question, the economic question, is that the best way to make the economy recover, or is that simply a way to get votes and to spread the wealth, as Obama has said?
Well, Angus, where do you see that strategy, and what is the best strategy?
Well, I think it's got a lot of flaws. What he's essentially doing is narrowing the tax base, giving more to those that don't have, and taxing the people that actually generate the productivity within the economy.
Well, wasn't there a problem with Hoover the last time around, in the 1929 recession, the Depression, that the mistake was all the spending was coming from the very top, and that clearly wasn't enough to bring about sustained growth.
Yeah, look, I think that might have been an issue, but also don't forget, back in 1929, the government only accounted for 3% of the economy. Today it accounts for 20%, so I don't think that's so much the issue. But, America has openly embraced capitalism for the last 200 years. I'm not sure whether they want to be moving so far to the left with respect to these new tax policies that Obama wants to bring in.
And Geoffrey, have those tax policies been properly articulated? Are the voters sleepwalking towards Obama by default because he's the fresh-face, soundbite, savvy candidate? And yet, as you say, this is a move that we haven't seen since before Reagan now, back to big government.
Well, sleepwalking, I don't know. I think that what has happened in the election since September 15th, since Lehman Brothers fell, is that the election has become a straight up or down referendum on Bush economic policies, and American voters are going to vote no on that. And it's too hard for McCain to distance himself from it. So Obama has been winning more or less by default without having much attention to his policies. If you look at his policies, I think the question, the more sophisticated economics question is, where do you want the stimulus? America is a consumer-driven economy, so I think there's an argument for putting money back in consumers' pockets to come out of a downturn. What Republicans have been saying is it's going to people too low down the socioeconomic spectrum to have a big economic uptick associated with it. This is where the Joe the plumber and what kind of tax cuts the US need. That's why that was such a big debate, because it was a political question, but also an economic question about where should the stimulus be focused if you want to turn the economy around.
And you're saying it's just a short-term, bounce, that it won't really be sustainable.
Well, that's the big question. If I was now to talk the positive side of the Obama agenda, I think Obama would say, listen, we do need to diversify the energy base of the economy, and the way I'm going to do that is to invest in alternatives. He said he'd invest $150 billion over 10 years in alternative energy, and he's talking about a new green collar jobs in the US as this is the way forward for the country.